Hello everybody and welcome to Naomi's All-Inclusive World, where today I will be looking at dysphagia as a condition, or in other words, swallowing difficulties, where someone is not able to swallow food as fast as the rest or with ease, just like the others. One of the many interesting things in life is just the fact that we can never be able to do stuff in life at the same pace. You know, we can never all be fast runners. We can never all be, quick thinkers. We can never all be, good chefs or something like that. We always are good in different spaces at our different, rates and so on, and that's why comparison can sometimes be unfair, because then you might be comparing me to your pace, comparing me to your speed, comparing me to your intellectual ability and so on, which really might be unfair, because again, just the way we are different human beings with different names and so on. Yeah, you don't actually don't treat me or expect me to be exactly the way you are in life. And one of the areas that I would really like to talk about today, that we need to work in information about, because if we are not very careful, we might be quick to mistake it or even compare it to the speeds or the rates of other people, is dysphagia, or like we call it in other words, swallowing difficulties. Now, dysphagia is a condition that first of all can affect anyone across ages, different ages. So you realize, like for example, a kid might actually have swallowing difficulties. A middle-aged person might have swallowing difficulties, and even seniors or elderly, people might have swallowing difficulties. So this is a condition that really cuts across ages. And that's why it will help for you to want to have more information about someone who you think is experiencing this problem before you conclude on anything, because really every story is very different actually. Take an example of a kid. You as a parent, you as a guardian, before you actually conclude that maybe your kid is being fuzzy with food, you might want to see how they have been doing, going back maybe a while before you really just conclude like your kid doesn't like this food and so on, because for all we know, they might actually be suffering from dysphagia. We are usually quick to go like, oh, maybe this kid does not like githeri or this particular food, that's why they're eating it very slowly. Or maybe this kid is very spoiled, maybe they are always being fed by their parent or the nanny, and that's why they do not want to eat, something like that. No, just like get more information before you conclude, because for all you know, maybe the food might be too spicy for the kid. Or really, maybe you're right, the food might just not be the best for this kid. The way we always have that food that you really do not enjoy, you just eat it because it's on the menu for that particular day, and mommy said, to Saturday lunchtime is githeri, for instance. So whether or not I enjoy githeri, I just have to eat. So look around and just see, does the baby struggle with every food, or is it just a particular type of food, before you conclude they actually are not swallowing or eating like the others, and so on. And then also look at the timings, do they just like struggle with that food in a particular time? Say for example in the morning, maybe you wake them up too early before their system is up and you expect them to eat, and that's why they struggle. Or are they struggling with every other food, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and so on? So you want to see the track of just how it's going before you conclude on anything, and especially if it's a child. If it's an adult, or especially seniors, which could be like our parents, our great grandparents, or say for example seniors who actually are say in an adult facility and so on, you might want to look at more than just one thing before you conclude that maybe they are just being fuzzy with food, because dysphagia is very real. And therefore, yeah, it might call for you, especially if it's elders. You might actually have to consider, say for example, smashing their foods, mashing their foods, or maybe even blending them, and so on, so that then you see, does it also affect even the food in all the states, or just in the solid state, in the solid form, and so on. Some of the signs and symptoms that you might want to look out, or someone with dysphagia might be having, might exude, will be things like, for example, they feel pain while swallowing. Ideally, chewed food should just go down normally. It should go down without discomfort, without pain. So when you observe your person, whether it's your child or your elderly parent, like kind of looking like they're in pain, cringing maybe when they're swallowing, or looking like they're in discomfort, you might want to look into that. Inability to swallow, maybe whenever they try to swallow, the food just comes back up, and so on. You might want to have them actually medically checked, and especially if it's repeated, because for all we know, it could be a sign of dysphagia. A sensation of food getting stuck in the throat or chest or behind the breastbone. Ni kama wamekula, the food has gone, but kind of they're so uncomfortable, like the food is stuck somewhere. You might want to, look into that. Drooling, whether it's kids, whether it's our elderly parents, they just drool. Mate anamtoka ni kama, something like that. Maybe because the food is stuck here or something like that. So, and again, when such a thing just gets started, it's not been there like for forever, but then for some reason you start noticing some of these things, it might probably be a sign. Hoarseness in their voices. You realize from nowhere now, it's like they sound like their voice is hoarse, is rough, is not soft, is not smooth. It could also be a sign of that. Food coming back up. Amekula shameza, then kidogo the food comes back up. It could be a sign of that. Frequent heartburns, and so on. And for the people who actually have experienced heartburns, they're not the most comfortable feelings. So when someone actually experiences very frequent heartburns from almost every meal they have, they complain of heartburns and so on, it might be wise to have that person checked to just rule out anything that could be associated with dysphagia. And also just that stomach acid backing up in the throat, so that you feel the acidity a lot in your throat. Yeah, you might want to be professionally checked so that you rule out anything that could be associated with dysphagia. I just also want to emphasize that depending also with the age of a person, you might realize that maybe some of these symptoms are more, say for example, in adults. So look out for those of us who are caring for our elderly parents, our elderly grandparents, or even say for example, if you are a caregiver somewhere, you might want to look out for such things, because also, especially someone who is on medication for whatever condition, these medications we take are very interesting. They could be taking care of one condition, but again, either worsening another one or introducing another condition. And one of them could actually just be this dysphagia. So again, like especially for elderly people, check out, look at the trend of this person and just see, because sometimes probably just the solution could be actually trying to make their food as soft as possible, and especially when they're elderly people, because come on, when we grow old everywhere, including the teeth, including just the system to to do everything it needs to do, and so on. So you might want to look at that. And also just, you know, it calls for a lot of patience, if especially like you are into caregiving of your elderly parent, elderly grandparent, or just a caregiver and so on. Realize that, you know what, be flexible, not to expect everyone to finish their meal at the same time, you know, everybody to dig in at the same time and finish at the same time and so on. Because for all we know, some of these people could actually be having an underlying and untreated or even undiscovered, you know, level of dysphagia, and hence the reason they are slow in finishing their food and so on. So yeah, there you go. I really thought I needed to share a thing or two about dysphagia, or just the swallowing difficulty, so that, guys, we walk in information. We walk in information, and also just it helps us be gracious to those who either are struggling with it and are aware, or maybe are not even aware that they're struggling with such a condition. Thanks for your time. Keep liking, sharing, and subscribing in case you're my first timer. And for my returning subscribers, asante sana. Let's keep doing this. And do not forget to drop me a comment. Can you relate with this condition? Had you even known that there was such a condition? Do you know of someone who actually struggles with swallowing difficulties and so on? Just share your experience in case you have come across such a person, and let's keep learning. So asante sana, and I'll see you in my next episode.